Great, we're going to get started a little bit late, but we're going to jump in. So first, welcome. This is our second MesosCon in Asia, hot on the heels of the last one that we just did in November. So it's great to be back. I wanted to start just by thanking our sponsors, in particular our Diamond sponsors, JCloud and Microsoft, and our Platinum sponsors, H3C and Mesosphere, and the Gold sponsors, the Cloud Native Computing Foundation and Huawei. Of course, our community partner, Apache, and the host sponsors, the Linux Foundation. Okay, so I'm going to kind of set the stage a little bit for the conference, and then I'm going to hand it off to the keynotes who are going to speak from there. Great. Okay. So first, I just wanted to let you all know that we've got some more upcoming MesosCons this year in 2017. There's two. Our MesosCon North America, which is going to be September 13th through the 15th in Los Angeles, and our MesosCon Europe, which is going to be October 25th through the 27th in Prague. So if any of you are interested in participating in those conferences, please submit. The CFPs are still open. The MesosCon North America CFP closes in the end of the month, the end of June. Okay, second, I wanted to highlight one of the things that I found to be really, really great about having a conference hot on the heels of the last one in November. In November, we had about 2 end-user presentations at the MesosCon in Hangzhou, and this year we have more than 14, which I'm really excited about. So it's been great to be able to connect with the members of the Asian and Chinese communities and have them come out and talk about how they're actually using Apache Mesos at their organizations. So check out the schedule. Lots of great end-user talks that you can go throughout the next 2 days. Mesos continues to release at a pretty active cadence. Most recently, we've released the 1.3 version. There's been a bunch of updates in each of those, and you're going to see throughout the conference today different presentations that are going to be talking about some of these different features. I just wanted to highlight a few, and then I'll even highlight some of the presentations that you'll see throughout the conference. In 1.1, we added support for nested containerization, as well as some better support for faults, failures with what we call partition awareness. For those of you that actually came to MesosCon in 2016 in China, one of the keynotes was actually talking about the nested containerization support, so you can go check that out. In 1.2, we followed on with the nested containerization support and added support for what we call container attach and exec, as well as general checks or probes. And there's going to be presentations later in the conference about both of those features. And in 1.3, we've added quite a few new features as well: executor authentication, secret support, hierarchical roles, and multi-roles. And again, there's going to be some presentations about this. So I just wanted to highlight a couple of those. To learn more about all the work that's been going into our executor, which is a big part of what we do on the agent side when it comes to containerization, there's a talk tomorrow called the Executor Deep Dive that really goes into really the life of an executor, the life cycle, as well as executor authentication, which is some new features that have recently been added. Again, a lot of this showed up in 1.3. There's also secrets management. A lot of that work also came in 1.3. We'll actually do, in the presentation, there'll be walkthroughs of image pull secrets, environment-based secrets, file-based secrets. I think there might even be a demo. So you can go to that to check out more of the work that's happening in Mesos around secrets management. As I mentioned earlier, we'd added nested containerization support in 1.1, and we followed after that by adding what we call attach and exec support. So this is the ability to attach to running containers to get their standard input, standard output, standard error, as well as to exec containers inside of other containers using the nested containerization support that we'd added in 1.1 that we already heard about at the last conference. So again, there's going to be a presentation about this later today, in fact, where you can learn all about the architecture and what really went into adding this support, as well as how to take advantage of it. So I'm pretty excited about this stuff, actually. There's a lot of really, really interesting work that we've done in the Mesos project when it comes to containerization. In fact, containerization has been one of the areas where we've seen a lot of community contributions as well, and there continues to be a lot of people that are contributing to the community through containerization. There's image garbage collection that's currently being worked on by folks at Uber. They're also working on block.io subsystem statistics. There's image prefetching work being done by folks at Twitter. There's OCI image support being done by folks at IBM, and in fact, there's going to be an OCI presentation tomorrow about that as well. Containerization is one of the places where there's so much work being done by the community that I also wanted to call out one of the keynotes we're going to have tomorrow being done by Gilbert from Mesosphere, who's going to talk about what it takes to really join the Mesos community and where you can contribute. And as it turns out, Gilbert's involved in many of these patches as well, so I think it's very apropos that one of the most vibrant parts of the community is also where Gilbert is spending a lot of time. Okay, one of the areas when people first start thinking about contributing to Apache Mesos, one of the things that trips them up is a library that we use really extensively within Mesos called libprocess. It's our C++ concurrent programming library, and it introduces lots of great concepts like actors, futures, promises. It's really, really cool stuff, but it also, for a lot of people, tends to be a little bit more difficult to get involved in the project. So if you're interested in contributing, if you're interested in being able to participate as a developer, there's going to be a talk later today that talks about that library so you can get a good overview of what it would take to be programming inside of Apache Mesos. So speaking of community and the broader community, the ecosystem is growing quite a bit around containers. There's a lot of things happening. There's a lot of different tools. There's a lot of different kinds of technologies. And one of the things that we've been trying to do at Mesosphere, as we've been trying to be leaders in the community, is really think about ways in which we can abstract away a lot of the different integrations between different things in the communities to make it easier for people to take advantage of that stuff. So OCI, the Open Container Initiative, was a big part of that. We're involved in that in a bunch of ways. CNI, the Container Networking Interface, is another example of that. And a more recent one is the Container Storage Interface, which is work that we started with folks from the Cloud Foundry project, folks from Docker, as well as folks from Kubernetes, to really all come together and figure out how we could create something like a standard around storage for containerization. So I'm really excited about all this work that we're doing, and there's going to be a keynote later today that's going to talk about that in much more detail. Okay, so in a lot of the different conferences you go to these days, there's a bunch of reinforcing trends that you hear lots of people talking about, from microservices to containers, containerization to container orchestration. And a big one for us in the Mesos community is big data and analytics. And especially, that's really transitioning from big data to fast data. Not just big and doing processing a lot of data, but actually doing the processing really quickly. And there is really this transition that's occurring in the industry as we're moving from just batch processing to event processing, where we need to process those events as quickly as possible in order to provide much more interesting products and services back to our end users, back to our customers. So, one of the things that I think is really interesting about this is while we're doing this transition to fast data, it still really is big. It's a lot of data. The example that we like to give is the Airbus A380 has more than 10,000 sensors in each wings and can produce around 7 terabytes of data a day from all its flights. So we want to do that processing exceptionally fast, but it's still a lot of data. And because it's a lot of data, what we're starting to see more and more in the industry is the processing of the data moving to the edge. So we're no longer taking all the data, having to ship it to our data centers, but we want to do that processing on the edge as much as possible, which is really driving us to think about new architectures and new kinds of software we want to use to be able to do this. So this really is the modern application. This is the future modern application, right? There's devices and sensors where data is coming in. We're taking that data and we're queuing it up into message buses. Then we're doing analytics on that data. We're storing some of that in distributed storage. And of course, we have our microservices that we've actually built to help serve that data or coordinate that data in other ways. And I think what you often hear when we're thinking about containerization, a lot of times we talk about the bottom left. We focus on the bottom left, which is microservices. But there's really a lot more that we need to focus on when it comes to our modern applications. Things like message queues, message buses, things like analytics, distributed storage. And that's one of the things that when Apache Mesos, when we first created it, that's one of the focus areas we really had, was to build frameworks around those different components and be able to provide those all in the same way. And one of the stacks that we often talk about for making it easy to run that is what we call the SMAC stack, which is Spark, Mesos, Akka, Cassandra, and Kafka. Kafka for a message bus, Spark for analytics, Akka for microservices, and Cassandra for distributed storage. So there's a bunch of presentations at the conference as well around big data, and I highly advise that those of you that are interested in checking them out. There's one on Jupyter and Spark from some end users, which I'm really excited about. The Mesos-based big data infrastructure at Dubon. Dubon have been longtime users of Apache Mesos. They've done a lot of really, really incredible stuff with big data. They're going to be talking about everything from GPUs to TensorFlow to MXNet. So please go check that out if you're interested. As we move from analytics to more and more streaming as well as thinking about multiple different kinds of analytics tools you might want to be running simultaneously, there's some new frameworks that are part of the Apache Mesos ecosystem that we're going to be highlighting at the conference, one of which is Apache Flink, which is another streaming service, so please check that out. And then Zeppelin, similar to Jupyter, is another way of actually being able to work with your data on top of something like Apache Spark. So you can take a look at that presentation as well. OK, so in order to really make this multiple framework vision a reality, there's been a lot of work that we've had to focus on within Apache Mesos to make that happen. This is a slide that I'd put up over a year ago. Maybe not over a year ago, less than a year ago, actually, at MesosCon in Europe, where we talked about a lot of the things we wanted to work on within the project to really bring this multiple framework reality to bear. And it's great to see a lot of the work we've started to do on these things. There's been work around quotas that have been added to Apache Mesos. The multiple roles and hierarchical roles, as I mentioned, was added to 1.3. There's been some work around revocable resources. There's a lot more that we're going to be doing, especially around preemption. And we've started as well a lot more work around first-class fault domains within the system. So all of this is really driving towards the multi-tenancy vision we have for the multiple framework reality in the future, as well as the multi-cloud vision that we really have for what we're focusing on as a project. OK. So the last thing I really wanted to mention was the amazing keynotes. We've got a bunch of fantastic keynotes throughout the rest of this morning, as well as tomorrow morning. So just please stay for the rest of this morning, as well as join tomorrow morning to see all those. I want to highlight two of them that I think are great. One of the things we've tried to do in the Apache Mesos project is stay really connected to what's happening in academia and what's happening in research. And we try to bring at least one or two academic or research presentations to our conferences in the past. We have one this morning, the low latency in-memory computing and its implications on scheduling. And tomorrow as well, we have a keynote from the folks at Tsinghua University that's going to be talking about their big data lab. So a bunch of great keynotes, especially from some of the end users that we've been working with more and more in China. OK. So that's all I wanted to do to kick things off. I'm really excited about the next 2 days. There's lots of really, really fantastic talks. We're going to transition now, I think, to the first presentation. I'm also going to act as the MC for the next 2 days, which should be fun. We're going to transition now to the next presentation.